So some terminology again, just to repeat myself. Sorry for those of you on YouTube, I forgot to hit record, but object that's launched through the air is called a projectile. It follows a parabolic trajectory. But we're not going to analyze it as a parabola. We probably could, Kayla. We could bring in the whole y equals a bracket x minus p all squared plus q and do the 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. That only works nice for nice whole numbers. I want to be able to analyze it anywhere. We're going to break it up into horizontal and vertical components, except that's too much writing. I don't want to write the word horizontal. I don't want to write the word vertical. As an abbreviation for the word horizontal, I'm going to use a subscripted X. What would be a good letter to use for vertical? Because I asked you to. What would be a good letter to use for vertical? Y. Because I asked you to. I'll never get tired of that joke. Okay. So when I tuck a y on the bottom of a variable, that's my way of saying vertical. When I put an X, that's my way of saying horizontal. And if you want one rule, Jilun, here is the rule. As I pull out the Nerf dart gun, don't ever put a vertical into a horizontal equation, and don't ever put a horizontal into a vertical equation. If you can do that, you have to get perfect on all of this. Because the physics itself is d equals vit plus a half at squared, vf equals vi plus at, and vf squared equals vi squared plus 2ad, which most of you are doing pretty good on. Horizontal velocity is constant because horizontally the acceleration is 0. When you throw something, once it leaves your hand, nothing is pushing it sideways anymore. The only force acting on it is gravity. I got a video to show you, and I can even give you a little demo because some of you look skeptical. Let me pause my video here. Have I convinced you? I hope I have. The vertical velocity, which I'll call Vy, is not constant. It's changing because the vertical acceleration, which now I'll call Ay, is equal to, Connor, you said it earlier. What this means is solve a projectile problem. Not free fall, Karn, but a projectile when you give it a sideways velocity and it's in free fall. We're going to divide everything into what we call components. In fact, what I tell people, the trick we're going to use is what I call a T-table. So-called because it's shaped like the letter T. This is right up there with, hey, DFIC, hey, draw a free body diagram. Hey, if there's a change in height, change in speed, curvy path is a job for conservation of energy. Hey, wham, they collide, this is a job for momentum. Well, you know what? If there's a projectile, it's a job for a T-table. Yeah, I even got Connor that time. You know what? Here is what you're going to write in your T-table every time. You're going to write the vertical acceleration is negative 9.8. And you're going to write the horizontal acceleration. What did we say the horizontal acceleration was? 0. This bugs kids, by the way. Even in my Physics 12 classes, I still have students that are solving something horizontally and that 0 creeps them out. They want to put a 9.8 in there. What did I say? The sin was don't ever put a vertical into a horizontal. If you can remember that, all the physics will take care of itself. Let's actually do a question. So the horizontal and the vertical components, they have no effect on each other. They do not affect each other at all. They are independent of each other. What that means is if two objects both start from the same height, how fast one object is traveling horizontally doesn't change how long it takes for it to hit the ground. They hit the ground at the same time. Let me see if I can demonstrate that. It's really easier if we do a question. I like example 1. I like example 1. Example 1 is going to be on your final exam. Somewhere around question number 54, give or take. I'll even be that blatant. Oh, except example 1, Julie, it's not going to be a 92-meter high cliff. It'll be a different height. And it's not going to have a velocity of 19 meters per second. It'll be a different velocity. But I'm going to be asking you to find these things. says how long until, oh, a projectile is launched horizontally. All of us underline the word horizontally. That's the key word in being able to actually solve this. What that means is the projectile is being launched straight sideways with no up or down angle. Up or down angle makes this way tougher. Get there yet. We'll get there a little bit next class. From a 92-meter high cliff with a velocity of 19 meters per second. What does DULP stand for? I strongly encourage you for all of these, it is worth DULPing. Cliff. Horizontal velocity of 19. I'll draw it in like that. And vertical height of 92 meters. Adam, what's this question asking me to find? What's part A asking me to find? T. Okay. You know what? We're not going to jump into solving this. This is a projectile. Do you remember what I said our best strategy was to solving these? It was a certain type of a table. I called it a T-table. So go like this. And put a big H for horizontal and a big V for vertical. This is a projectile. And the two things that we're going to write down, I can't call these no-brainers because you need to know some physics, but I hope they become obvious to you so that they become, for you, a no-brainer. I can write down my horizontal acceleration. What's my horizontal acceleration, Adam?
Zero.
Yep. And what's my vertical acceleration? I always start like this. The rest of the question, Adrian, it depends on the information they're giving me. That 92, Adam, what is that? Vertical or horizontal? Look at the picture. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to call it dy for vertical, just to remind myself. What is the vertical displacement? Don't say 92, that's wrong. Are we, okay. What's that 19? Vertical or horizontal?
Horizontal.
We can put units in if we want. I know one more thing. I know one more thing in the vertical column. Do you remember what I said? Vy initial is what? Adam, what did you say part A was asking me to find? Time. How many pieces of information in the horizontal column? How many pieces of information do I know in the vertical column? I'm going to find time vertically. If I had 3 pieces of information in the horizontal column, I'd find time horizontally. And when I say horizontally, what I really mean is vertically, A is going to be negative 9.8 whenever I write an A. Horizontally, A is going to be 0 whenever I write an A. So how am I going to find time here? Vertically. You know what? Let's do this all on the vertical side. I'm going to go A t equals question mark. Here. There, vertical. Adam, I'm looking for an equation that has A, D, V initial, and T in it. There is one.
A equals B plus half AT squared.
Do you remember what I said was the sin, was the most common mistake, what you should never do? Never put a horizontal into a, and never put a vertical into a horizontal. So for a little insurance, because it's so easy, I'm going to go like this just to remind myself. Vertical, vertical, vertical. You'll notice I didn't put vertical on time. Time's a scalar. What do I care about that? But just to remind myself. Are any of these 0?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're saying in this particular situation, I can do that? Which actually gives me, honestly, a way nicer equation. It gives me the vertical displacement equals A t squared. Remember, we did this last lesson. I said instead of putting a 1/2 in the front, it looks prettier if I just go over 2. How would I get the t by itself?
2d over a.
Nope.
Square root.
What? Square root. Is that okay? So, t is going to be the square root of 2 times negative, what was the displacement?
90.
All over negative 9.8. By the way, remember you missed the negative 92. You just said 92. The nice thing is here, your calculator would barf at you, would give you an error, and that would be its way of saying, go check your signs. So you'd probably catch it. Okay? I'm going to do this. 2 times negative 92 divided by negative 9.8 square root. 4.33307. I'll go 4.33, but I'll keep this on my calculator. Is that okay? And since this was one of the things they wanted me to find, I'll even draw a little box around it. There's A. In fact, you know what? I could even now write that up here. Michael, what does B want me to find?
How far from the base of the earth will the projectile hit?
There's a fancy word for that. It's called the range. Range is dx, horizontal distance. Michael, how many things do I know in the horizontal column? It's not enough.
Well, you know, time is it.
Oh, you're saying I don't actually know 2. I know 3 things because time is a scalar. It can go in either column, and the time it takes to hit the ground is the same amount of time it takes to go sideways. So you're telling me I go like this and put time there? Really? Yeah. This is why we have to break it into components. By the way, you're going to, no pun intended, or maybe the pun is intended, you'll find you spend most of your time finding time. Okay? If you don't know time, trust me, you want to go find your time on time. If they tell you time, you'll spend less time, the question will fall apart. I'm looking for an equation, Michael, that has A, V, T, and D in it.
That's the same one.
The same one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. So you're telling me, again, I can go D equals VIT plus a half AT squared. But you know what? I'll put an X there, an X there, and an X there just to remind myself, make sure I go horizontal, 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 horizontal. Are any of these 0?
Acceleration.
Oh, you mean this whole sucker just vanishes? I like that. 0 is a nice number to do math with. It's going to be, what's VI? 19, not 0, because that's vertical VI. Horizontal, in fact, you know what? VI horizontally is also VF because there's no acceleration. That's why you'll notice I didn't put an I or an F there. It's the same the whole, in fact, if you ask me, how fast is it moving when it hits the ground sideways? 19 meters per second. It's also moving vertically, but it's going to skid along when it hits at 19 meters per second. So it's going to be 19 times 4.33. I'm going to use my answer button. 82.3 meters. There's the range. There's the range. Is that okay? Turn the page. I fibbed when I said I liked example 1. I like example 2. On your final exam, I'm not going to actually tell you to find the time first. I'm just going to give you this and I'm going to say, tell me the range. But you know what you're going to spend most of your time finding? Okay. How am I going to start? So projectile is launched horizontally. Probably underline the word horizontally. That kind of lets me know this question is going to be not too bad. From a 123 meter high building at 12.2 meters per second, find the range. How am I going to start this? Dulp. building is 123 meters high. And the velocity is 12.2 meters per second. Karin, what kind of a table am I going to draw here as a strategy, because this is a projectile? A T-table. Break it up into components. We're going to break it up into horizontal and vertical. Karin, what two things am I going to write, even but without thinking almost? What two things can I put in here? I'll give you a hint. AX equals 0 and AY equals? You know this. Huh? Yeah. I can almost write those without thinking. The only time I couldn't is if I was on the moon or somewhere where A is different. But I'm not going to throw that at you this year. Everything else now, I go back to the question, Adrian, and I see what they gave me. Adrian, that 123, what's that? Vertical or horizontal?
Or vertical, sorry, vertical.
You sure now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Adrian, what mistake did I just make? Okay. Good. Adrian, that 12.2, what's that?
Vertical.
First of all, what is it? It's a velocity, horizontal or vertical? Sure you want to rethink that? Look at my picture too. Yes? Yes? Okay. Adrian, how many things do I have on the left-hand side right now? How many on the right-hand side? Not enough. Oh, what else do I know? If I'm, gotta be clever. Okay, vertical or horizontal, which column am I in?
Vertical.
Vy initial is? Although this question said find the range, by the way, what it's really saying is find the horizontal distance. I'm not going to bother. I will eventually. You know I'm going to spend most of my time finding? Time. Okay. So you ready? Let's go T equals question mark. Adrian, which column do I have three things in?
Vertical.
I'm going to solve this vertically. Now, by the way, before I go further, the next question we're going to do, instead of me giving you the vertical height, I'm going to give you the range. I'm going to tell you how far the bullet traveled. Then you'll solve for time horizontally, and you'll move it to the vertical column. It's whichever column you know three things, start there. Whichever column you know more stuff, start there. I'm looking for an equation, Adrian, that has, I guess, well, A, D, oh, you know what? Put a Y there, Mr. Duick. A, D, VI, and T. Is there one? Really? Are you saying that so far the theme of today solving projectiles is that quadratic equation, D equals VIT plus a half AT squared? You guys might remember the last lesson, the one we used quite a bit was the VF squared, VI squared, 2AD1. Okay. So you're telling me I can go like this, dy equals Vy initial t plus 1/2 Ay t squared. Are any of these 0? What if it wasn't? Julie, if it wasn't, then I would have to use the quadratic formula like you asked me about earlier today. That's going to be physics 12, and that's actually a pretty tough question. When wouldn't it be 0? If instead of launching horizontally, we launched it at an angle, so it would be partly horizontal and partly vertical. Physics 12. But you're right, I can do that. In fact, what equation can I use to solve for t? More specific. You have it written down on the previous page, don't you? Come on, you go check.
2 dy square root of 2 dy over a.
Can we go straight to there and just kind of... In fact, you know what? If you had actually said that right away, I wouldn't even have written the dy equals Vy. If you'd been clever enough. My bad. Here we go. Square root. What's dy, Adrian? Negative 1, 2, 3, yes? all over negative 9.8. How long is this in the air for? It's going to be almost exactly 5 seconds, right? Square root of 25.1, that's going to be really, really close to 5. 5.01 seconds? Except, Adrian, that's not what they asked me to find. What did this question ask me to find?
The range.
Horizontal. I only know two things here. Or do I? Oh, you're telling me now I can say, and I can find that? I'm looking for an equation, Adrian, that has A, V, T, and D in it. No! Really? So you're saying now I can go horizontal equals horizontal V times T plus 1/2 A horizontal T squared. Are any of those 0? Oh, which means this whole thing is 0, because 0 times 1/2 times T squared is just 0. It's kind of nice. What was Vx? I've scrolled down. What was the horizontal velocity? 12.2 times, all right, 5.01, but you know I'm going to use my answer button. $61.1. Units? Units? Yep. Meters per second? Meters distance, right? Okay. Couple more, we're done. This trick, this skill, this approach of taking something that's moving slanty and saying instead, Sage, no, it's not moving slanty. It's moving straight in one direction and straight in another direction and just splitting them up. We're going to be doing that an awful lot next year. We call it breaking things into components. We're going to do that for forces that are on angles, on ramps. We're going to break them into components. For collisions that are at angles, we're going to break them into components. For projectiles, we're going to break them into components. It's a really, really handy skill. And it's a nice way to start realizing that you can think. You can look at objects and you can say, I don't have to look at them moving in the yucky way. I can imagine they're moving at the same time in two much nicer ways that I can wrap my brain around. It's a good way to split your thinking. Got your candies? Example 3. I like example 3. I like example 3. Example 3 is a nice question. Maybe. I can't remember if I put this one on your final. Partly because I'm in the process of still typing it, so it may end up there. I got 56 questions. I'm going to put 4. The last 4 questions on your final will be, okay, here you got to know your stuff. Yeah.
Is the exam in order?
Roughly, it goes by topic. I don't know if it's in exactly the same order as I taught them to you, but it'll go, oh, here's like 10 momentum questions in a row. Oh, here's like 8 force questions in a row, for the most part. Yeah.
Is it all multiple choice? Or
I don't know. What have I said several times already? Hey, Connor, let's do number 3 together. Is this a projectile?
Yes.
How is it launched?
Horizontal.
I'm going to underline that because that's going to help my approach. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to dulp. Oh, this picture is going to be a little different. This time, I think they want me to find the height. They did give me the horizontal velocity. And Connor, what else did they give me? They gave me that distance. I imagine the path would look something like that. I really don't care. Gonna make it, Jay?
Yep.
You sure? Because you were tilting sideways the whole time there. Hey, Connor, how am I going to start with my approach? What am I going to do here?
T-chart it up.
Horizontal, vertical. What else can I write?
AX equals 0, AY equals 9.8. DX equals 144.
Oh, this is different. I have a D in this. Okay.
DX equals 32. And that is all you know at the moment.
I disagree.
Oh, we know By is going to be 0. Not bad.
Which column do I know three things this time? I'm going to solve this one horizontally. So I'm going to make, oh, by the way, although they asked me to find how high, you know I'm going to spend most of my time finding? So I'm going to go, Connor, I'm looking for an equation that has A, D, V, and T in it.
T equals 2dx over ax.
I'm looking for an equation that has T, V, A, and just go even simpler than that. What equation are we starting with? Again.
V equals VIT.
Really? Oh, I like that. You'd almost think I saved this for the end of the year as like clever review for the beginning of the year too. Maybe. So Connor, you're telling me this? Why didn't I bother writing plus a half AT squared?
Because it is 0.
What's 0?
The A.
Yeah, since A is 0, half AT squared is 0. In fact, if I really want to be lazy, I could just write that. Let me make that a proper T. And why is that so nice? Because it turns out this is really easy to get the T by itself, Connor. You were trying to do some convoluted thing. How would I get the T by itself here?
Divided by the VX.
Just divide by V. That's kind of nice. To finish the year having done all these much more complicated equations, to end with this, it's going to be D over V, horizontal and horizontal. It's going to be 144 divided by 32. You know what? That should work out. In fact, I might even be able to do that in my head. Let me think here. 4 is going to cancel, so it's going to be 11 and 25. 11 and 25 is, 36. No, I'm doing bad math. 4.5?
Yeah.
That was a fluke. I can't claim credit for that. That was knowing a bunch of 32 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So that was knowing a bunch of 2's were in the bottom, and it was going to end at a 0.5 because you're dividing by a bunch of 2's. Seconds. Except that's not what they asked me to find. Connor, what did they ask me to find?
Height from the ocean.
Oh, are you saying they want me to find... I only have 2 things in my vertical column. Or do I? Connor, I'm looking for an equation that has D, A, VI, and T in it. Is there one?
Yeah.
Which one?
I wonder which one.
I don't know.
D equals VIT plus a half AT squared.
No. Well, sorta. Sorta. Max, what would you do if you were more clever than Connor? Which, we know. What would you write instead? Yeah, you would just write a half AYT squared. Why wouldn't you bother writing the VIT? Because VI is 0, and that's a waste of ink. So it's going to be 0.5, negative 9.8. By the way, the most common mistake is this question here on, you guys can't see on YouTube what I'm pointing to. Here, kids want to put A as negative 9.8. That 0 bugs them. Because they want to go plus a half AT squared, and they so want to put a negative 9.8. Ty, what letter is right there? What letter is right there? Which stands for? Don't you ever put a vertical into a horizontal. If you can keep that straight, then really the physics of what we're doing, I can't call it plug and chug, Ty, but it should be familiar territory, right? Don't put a vertical into a horizontal. Don't put a horizontal into a vertical. What'd you get? I think you actually get a negative answer, but that's because this is giving you actually a displacement. If you said the height was negative, I'd give you full marks. I would, but technically, so I'm going to write here equals negative 99.2 meters, and then I'll just write h equals 99.2. And that's why we always used h in the energy equations, because it is a scalar.
If you just put 99.2.
I'd give you full marks. That's what the thing in the box there is, yeah.
Oh yeah,
I just, so that when you're studying, you know that we did get a negative and that I chucked it.
okay.
It's also a convention, even if you're on the top of the cliff and you are looking down, you don't say, oh, this is a height of negative 99.2. The ground is usually a frame of reference, just in our English convention as well. It's cool, but I want to give you lots of time to just work on this. A would be fair game if I give you the height, what's the range? Then B asks you to find the horizontal component of the velocity just before impact. Actually, that I know, it's 54. C says find the vertical component. That would be Vy final. I think you'd use Vf equals Vi plus At using vertical, 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 vertical. And then impact velocity, you'd use Pythagoras. That's going to be physics 12. That's what I was hoping to get to this year. What's your homework? I left you actual room for some reason on this assignment, so you can show your work right on this assignment. Number 1 is good. 2 is good. 3 is good. 4 is good. 5 is good. 6 is good. You want me to do them all? I'm not going to assign them all unless you whine about it. 7 is good. How about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? How about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? 8, I'll sneak in physics 12 next year. By the way, 8 is asking, could you, if you knew everything, could you find the initial velocity that you were launched with? Yeah. It's possible to work back. You can try it if you want. 9 and 10 are kind of similar questions. If you want to try them, you certainly can. The answers, I think, are correct.